Hello, my name is Danny DiSantis. Today I'll be showing you the 960 grid system, describing what it is, explaining why it's useful, how to get it, and how to use it. This is their website, 960.gs. You can get their template systems by downloading them here in this big download button right on the front page, very useful. Also on their front page they have a couple examples of big websites that use their grid system to lay out their website. Okay, when you download the big download, you get this little zip file here. Inside, you have templates. In the templates folder, you have a whole bunch of different programs that you can use to set up a website. Today we're going to use Photoshop. I've already opened that, and here we see the grid. The grid is 960 pixels across, as you can see up by the rule. It's in pixel. There are 60 pixel columns with 10 pixel margins, creating a 20 pixel gutter in between each column. Add those all together, you have 960 pixels, which is closest to 1,000 pixels that you can divide up easily with round numbers. The reason why they chose to use a grid system like this is because that is the best resolution for most monitors available at the moment. Okay, so now that we've loaded up the template, let's show you how to set up a website. Alright. First, we'll go ahead and put their content here in a group and change the label on that to 960. We won't mess with these because we don't want to change the grid. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and turn the red off so that we just have the rule, which is really all you need. Okay, so when you're setting up a website, there's a few things you're going to want to take into account. Most websites have a banner up at the top. Lets you know where you are, gives you a good base to set everything up under. Then you usually have a navigation bar, either at the top or on the side, or both, depending on how you want to display your content. And then you'll have content in the main page. First, before we set up anything, we're going to make a couple groups. We'll have a banner group, and we'll have a side navigation group. Change that order there. And that way we can organize what we're going to lay out, so that way we can easily access it just in case we need to make changes or use the format for another site. We want to use the layout again. Okay, so first let's start a banner. I'm taking the selection tool and I'm just going to create a selection up at the top. The only stipulation really you have is you want to make sure you make a selection between the first rule all the way to the last rule, and that will give you your selection. I don't really like the size of that one, so we're just going to deselect that and start again. And since this is just a little tutorial, we're not going to get too technical here, but we'll just make a simple little gradient, which sometimes in graphic design could be a bit of a no-no, but we're not going to make it too splashy. And the reason why is because you don't want to distract from your content. If you distract from your content with a overly attractive banner, then you will defeating the purpose of the site. So let's just make a simple gradient and we'll say OK. And what we're going to do is we're not going to make it too complex. We'll make a new group a new layer. We're going to zoom out a bit, and we're going to start gradient up top. We're going to hold shift the whole time, and well below it we're going to let go. And that way, it's not very dark at the top, not the black that it started out as, and it's not the white at the very bottom. It's a simple gradient there. We'll deselect that, and we're going to zoom back in. Alright. So the banner up top, oops. It's a simple little banner. Okay. Then we can put a little text logo at the top here, once that finished loading. Actually, this is a good time to mention the font that I usually use is, I usually go to fontsquirrel.com. They have a lot of really good fonts. Most of them are free, and I'll use a couple of those here, just to give you an example. So we'll just go ahead and make a little selection here for our text. Let's see here. Looks like the font I thought I had installed is not installed. So I'm just going to use Gil Sans because that is a good font. Alright, so sorry about that. Alright, first we'll just go ahead and make a banner logo. And spelled right. That's important. Then we'll go ahead and make that bigger. And we'll change the color. Okay. And you may want to go with a little bit more detailed of a logo when you're making, you make your logo for your site, but this is just a example. Okay, so that's our banner logo. We can even jazz it up a little bit. Oops. And make a copy of the logo. And just move that down a few bars and over a few, and change the color. That way it's not just bland. There we go. It's a little different. There we go. Okay. So, when we're making our top navigation, what we want to do is set up text boxes that people can label the content we're going to be placing. So we'll go ahead and we'll make a little text box here. We'll change that font to one of the ones from FontSquirrel that I know I have. I'm going to use Hattori Hanzo. Change that to a smaller font, or smaller point. And we'll just make an arbitrary test article. Alright. Make that a little bigger so it's easier to see. And then we'll go ahead and place it. Generally, you want to decide how many. Oops, let's not do that way. You want to decide how many pages you're going to have on your site. but today we'll just start with 4. Just make a couple copies of these. And of course, you want to label them differently. We'll put the third one around here. Or no, we'll move that to the end. Put the second copy over here. And the first copy right around here. So. Okay, so now with 4, basically, we'll want to decide how many columns we're going to use for each. So we can leave an extra gutter here of this extra column here, and we'll put the first article right about center here. Now the best way to center would be to drag the edges to each of the margins and make sure that you are centered. And then, so now we'll have this article will take up 2 columns. Okay, so then we'll do the same here. Drag this header so that it's on both of those, and we'll decide how many we have left here. Now, with the last 2, they will take up a bit more space. So, we may want to divide these up a bit differently. Let's see. What we can do is we can leave the space in between this and continue that here, and we'll leave the space in between this one here and that here. Now that may not be the best solution, but that is a solution. You can also change the layout differently. If you want to center them a bit more, you can put that in between this column, which should give you the same space as the other ones, which we'll do that here. And there you go. Alright. Now for our main content, we will and make a sidebar first. We will want that all the way at the edge. Now every design is going to be a little different, but we'll want to, for our design, we're going to have our margins included, and that way we can have our content for the bar be inside the 2 columns and still leave space on the margins. Alright, so in this one we're going to go to our side navigation, make another layer, and for this we'll just do a simple color instead of doing a gradient. That way it won't take up too much of the distraction from the rest of the site. Okay, then we'll go ahead and make another layer. We'll go ahead and label these 2. This can be the side navigation, and this other layer we're actually going to make another group. We'll make that content. Okay, put layer 3 into the content panel, and we can label that content. Okay. Now for our main content, we're just going to basically use one big content panel. So we'll go ahead and we'll make it this size. Now we may want to, for our actual site, increase it down all the way to the bottom. But since this is just a sample layout, we'll just give a good idea of what will be there. Now that doesn't leave a lot of, it leaves a lot of space off to the side, so we want to go ahead and bring them a little closer. That way, using the different columns and margins as different columns and margins, we can decide what looks good. excuse me. This would be a pretty big size for a content. So you can have like blog posts or whatever your content's going to be inside this panel. Okay. So again, we'll just use a simple color. Make sure we'll have the content selected. We'll just go ahead and fill that in there. And yes, I am running this on a toaster, so so bear with me. Okay. Alright. Now, just for a layout, we will want to Greek this section so that we can kind of have an idea of what we'll have here. So that was a very bad text box. We want to kind of fill in the content as if we were filling in the content. We can say it's a blog post. We can have content fill in here, maybe lower it down a bit and have information of the user above and have like a comment system or something. But we're not too worried about what's going to be in the site at the moment, since we're just focusing on the layout. So we'll go ahead and just create some content, gibberish content in here. Copy fix that. Okay, so now we have content. And there it is. Alright, so to make our sidebar, basically we'll do the same thing as we have up here with the icons. And create another text article. We may want to use a similar size so that way it's noted, maybe a little smaller, and just make a, not last, a test. Okay, we'll center that, and there we go. We have a sidebar. Now, you can do this different ways. You can have a main header and tiny, smaller content for each header, but that's depending on your site, so you can set that up how you will. So we're going to go ahead and make a copy of this. Let's go ahead and do 5, because I think we've got a pretty big content set here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and drag the first one down a little. Drag the next one down a little. And now make sure when you're dragging that you hold shift, so that way it doesn't go out of the bounding box of the original. Alright, there's a 4th one, and make sure you also grab the content instead of, actually you don't have to grab the content, but you do have to make sure you don't grab the guide. That defeats the purpose of the guide. Okay, so that is a simple little layout for a site. There we go. There you go. And then that you can use to either demonstrate how you want to use your site, or if you're trying to hand this out to a who you're developing the site for. You can say this is what your site will look like. You may want to go into a bit more detail than that. Maybe actually use a Greeking service. You can go online and Google just Greeking, and you'll get some content there. But that is the basics for this. Alright, we'll go ahead and save that. We'll go ahead and save it in our test site folder, which is just outside of the templates that we downloaded. There's in our test site. We'll go ahead and make a new folder, and that can be layout. And then we'll save that inside the layout. Now there are different layouts you can use. This is the 12 column. There's a 24 and a 16 column. And those are all available in the templates. As you can see here, there's the 16 column and the 24 column. This is just the simplest one to use, I would say. So that's the one I'd recommend. You're welcome to explore the other ones. But next, we'll go ahead and learn how to start slicing this up so that we can use what we've made in our actual final product. Okay, so in the crops tool, you'll see the slice tool. You may not know what that's for if you're just learning Photoshop, but basically what that does is it lets you save individual parts of your document as different images. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and slice the banner. We'll go ahead and slice it like so. This way it's just the banner. Okay? Now, we'll zoom in a little bit and we will go ahead and start slicing the articles. Alright, what's a useful thing to do is to open your navigator, I think it's a navigator window, and your info panel. Okay? When you make a selection, this one, for instance, will be the same size as the columns added together, plus the two gutters. So we'll have 260 panel, 260 column, 260 pixel columns with two 10 pixel gutters, which equals 140 pixels. That's important to remember, so that way we can go ahead and take our slicing tool again and come over to this other test article, pick a spot, and bring this one to about 140 pixels as well. And that way we can get the same sized articles. We will want to kind of position it a bit better, maybe move it over a little bit, and that way our content will be uniform. Okay, we deselect that. Then we'll go ahead and select this next article. And we'll do the same, make sure that it is about 140 pixels across, and position that accordingly. Okay, and this one will be easy since it's still in our columns. Okay, and we'll see if this one's the same. Alright, now we have slices. Okay. What we'll want to do, since we'll also be using the slices in between, is we'll go ahead and match up slices in between the articles that we created. Now, these should be, some of them should be uniform, but the ones in the centers won't be exactly the same, which is okay, as long as it is at least centered to the eye. Most of the content should be just fine. Now each layout's going to be different, so you won't have to necessarily worry. Let's see. Okay, so we'll have a whole bunch of different slices, and they're numbered according to which one started with. So we started with this one, but it's number 2 because our one slice is the rest of the document. Okay. So next we want to name our slices. Now, we'll go ahead and take the Slice Select tool, and we'll just right-click inside of the slice. So we'll go ahead and edit Slice Options, and here we can go ahead and start making tags. So this will be our banner. Alright. Now that we have banner in the text, then we'll know what it is. The name will be what it's saved as. So what we'll do is we'll just ban, and that should be enough for us to save it as. Okay. Then we'll go ahead and edit Slice Options for this one. Now what we normally do, instead of naming them like Gallery or Contact, it's best to number them in order of how they are in the navigation. So we'll do nav, let's use lowercase, underscore 01. Okay, and we'll do the same here. Nav underscore 02. And this way, as you'll see in a bit when we're in Dreamweaver, the images will be much easier to find and much easier to place. Now, if we had used the columns perfectly, we would know exactly what size each piece is. But since each of them is a bit different, that's not too bad. But what we'll want to do, actually, I forget where I am. Let's see here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're on 5 now. Now I have 6, 7, and 8. And I guess 9. Now the naming is actually very important because when you finish working in Photoshop, Dreamweaver will only have the names to go off of. So we'll have all of these here saved in a separate folder. So what we'll do is, instead of just saving the document, we're going to save for web and devices. What that will do is open up a window in which we see our site. We only need a one-up view, which I forget, right here. The one-up will show the original, which actually, if we do have a two-up, we can show the difference between the two. So that's not too bad. So we'll go ahead and zoom in a bit, and same conventions as Photoshop. Spacebar will let you move, and then we'll see our image slices. What we're going to want to do is choose a image type for each of the slices. Now, if we're working with a photo or something that has a lot of colors in it, you'd want to use a JPEG. But we're going to want to use a GIF, since it's just simple colors. So what we can do is we'll just pick a GIF, and the way we decide which the way we decide which GIF we're going to do is based off of the colors. Now, our original has a good gradient here. When we choose 4 colors, we see that we don't have a very good gradient. What we want to do is choose the smallest number that looks closest to our image. 64 isn't bad. There's a bit of banding, but we don't really want banding, so we may want to increase that to a larger color selection. Or what we can do is lock in certain colors. Like, we'll know we need black, so we can lock black. We know we need this blue, so we can lock a certain blue. And that way, we can actually use a smaller image size, but still keep the selected colors we want. But 64 wasn't terrible, so we'll just go ahead and use that for the sample. Now, on these GIF images, they are not as expansive with their colors, so we can actually use a much smaller color selection. It's a bit too small, but we can use much smaller color selection, and it looks just fine. So we'll use 16 there. We can try 16 on this one. Colors are, it's a bit tricky with that one there. That's not bad. We'll go ahead and use 32. So on the middle ones, we'll use 16 colors, and on the tabs, we use 32. And we'll just do that for each and every one. So that way we can have them saved. Oh no, that's a 16. Come on, so you're not supposed to let me mess up. So just gotta make sure every single one of those is in the optimal color palette. Okay, so what we'll do is, since we've already have them named, when we click save and choose where we're going to save it, we'll have all of the different names in that folder. So we'll go ahead and put that in my downloads folder, which is where our test site is. And in our test site, we're going to want to save it in our test site. Why just in the test site? Well, because the way Photoshop saves the images, it will save it in a folder called images in the test site. The reason why they do that is because they want you to choose the root in our test site. Root is test site for your website, so that way you can have all your images folders, all your images in the images folder. It's a very, very good way to organize things. So we'll go ahead and click save, and we'll go ahead and save all of those images in our images folder. So we'll go back to our templates, which is in our root. See? Images folder inside the test. So in the images, we'll go ahead and open that up. Excuse me. And here we see the images we didn't use, the slices. We went ahead and saved the slices of the ones we didn't use. And we've got our banner, our navigations, all 1 through 9, and there we go. I'll show you another neat little trick you can use. If you want to kind of jazz up the site a bit, you can make a copy of every test article you've got there. And what we'll do is make an alternate version of every one of these. So that way when you're either on the site or when you do a rollover, you can have a different one so that people can know what site they're on, or just have a little flair for your site. So we'll hide our original, and we'll go ahead and give it a simple little effect. Now effects, unless they're done correctly, they can be kind of iffy to use. But just for the sake of example, we'll go ahead and choose the color we're using, and we'll just go ahead and do a simple one. Not necessarily the best one, but it's something. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is decrease the opacity a little bit. Using them just out of the box is a bit of a no-no. You don't want to just click something and have it work from click an effect and have it be the effect that you get out of the box. So there we go. Got a nice little glow for our test article. So what we'll do is we'll hide the next one. We'll copy and paste. I've been copying and pasting by holding Control and Alt on a PC. I forget the key command for a Mac, but I believe it is Option. I believe it's Option in Apple. And that will let you copy either layers, or if you want to copy effects, you can copy effects. Oops, we don't want to do that. So in this case, we'll just move the effect to that one. And we'll get rid of that guy, and we'll copy this effect. And there we go. And now we have a active version of all of our guys here. So what we'll do, we'll just go using the Slice Select tool, which we have selected. We'll right click and we'll edit the slice option. And instead of it just being nav02, it'll be nav02 underscore active. So we'll go ahead and change the names for all of these. Just putting underscore and active for each one. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and save for web and devices again, and this time we're going to want to make sure that the effect is well translated. So we'll click the image here and we'll see that it's in its original state. So we'll try 32 color, and that doesn't look too bad. You can try going a little smaller. I don't think that's going to work. Yeah, see banding there. You want to kind of avoid that at most costs. Oops, we did it again. So let's go to 32, just for the sake of example. And so we'll just go ahead and set all of these to 32. No, it is set to 32. Excellent. So if they're all set to 32, then we're good to go ahead and save. And now, since we already have these labeled as their original names, like banner and all the navigation ones, they won't need to save again, so we can just skip those. For these guys, they will save under their new names that we saved them under. So we'll click save, and it'll probably come up with a warning here. Oh no, it'll just ask to save in the same spot. We'll go ahead and click save. And okay, here it's going to ask you to replace. You can either replace or cancel, it doesn't really matter. We'll go ahead and replace, since they didn't change. And we'll go back to our folder after it's done saving. And we'll see we've got the test articles and the active test articles of each of them. Then we're ready to import these into Dreamweaver. Alright, so we go to Dreamweaver, go ahead and make an HTML. This will be our main page. I like using Dreamweaver in code, or in design view, or sorry, split view, which gives you both the code and the actual design for the site. That way, you have you can see what's happening here and actually see what the content is changing. Alright, so generally, I'll go through a lot more hierarchy and set up an actual site, but for the sake of time, we're just going to go ahead and insert these images in. So go ahead and insert an image, and doing this, you'll see the actual code, and maybe you can learn a little bit of HTML using this, and learn about how each site can be effectively made. Okay, so we've got our banner. So we'll insert our banner. Let's hit OK for that. Alright, the alternate text, we can have banner, and we don't need to worry about a long description right now for that. We can set that up in a bit. And here is the banner. Alright. Now just thinking about this now, we are going to want to make a div for this. Go ahead and make it the banner. And that way, well, I'll show you. Okay, so we have our banner div. Inside of the banner div, we're going to make another div, and that will be our wrapper div. Okay. Now it's very important to keep some form of hierarchy, so that way you can go back if you need to fix anything. You can see exactly where things are. Okay, so now we see that we have the ID, the banner div. We can go ahead and end the wrapper div. I like to make sure everything looks pretty hierarchical. Okay, so now what we want to do is in the head, we can change up the CSS for that. So the wrapper, go ahead and make a new CSS rule. I'm kind of bouncing between the design view and the code views to kind of give you an idea of how to do it both ways. So we're going to make a new ID. We can name it wrapper. Okay, basically what we're going to do is we're going to say that the wrapper has a set width of 960 pixels, since we know how big our site is. We can also set the height, but that isn't necessarily necessary, because our site, generally with a site, if you want it to scroll, you don't really want to set a height, but you can. Alright, so now using what we've just put up here, we'll go ahead and make a nav bar. So it'll be a style type and go ahead and make a ID of 960 pixels as well. Oops. I guess we don't really need to. Oops. Bear with me for a minute here. Okay, so in the wrapper, we'll go ahead and set up our navigation. And inside the navigation, we'll go ahead and insert our images. So we know which one we want to start with. That'll be nav1. So we insert nav1. We'll plop that in. We don't want to actually put any text on there, because we don't need to insert that in there. And then using what we've got here, what we want to do is we can kind of copy and paste a bit here to save some time instead of going into the insert. Just copy. And we had 9 different ones, so we'll paste. Oops. Like I said, we want to make sure it's very neat. About 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright, now what we need to do, we have the first one. Let's go down, change it to 2, 3, 4. I'm changing them right here where it's got the path. It goes to users, Dan, downloads, test site, images, and the GIF itself. So I'm just going to change those to the actual items themselves. And click here, and they all load. Now, why didn't this work? Because all of the width is the same. So what we'll do is we can go into images. We can see each article is a bit different. So article 1 is 140 pixels long. So we can change the width of this to 140 pixels. That should not do that because I made 1,400. See? It's little things. And actually, I just realized something. Here's a little trick that you might be able to use. If you, instead of pressing enter, you can end your tag right where the next one begins. And that way you get rid of that little space and it's perfectly lined up. So go ahead and fix that for each one of these. And that was just a little trick. Oops, we don't want to do that. It's just a little trick that I learned over the years to help you organize your content a bit better. And put those in. Okay, now that they're all exactly the same, we just, see, we got rid of all those spaces. Okay, so we want to go in and make sure all of the images have the same pixel sizes here. So nav 3 is going to be 56 pixels across. So we go in here, change 56, and that's been fixed. Now all of our articles should be the same size. So nav 4 will be 140 pixels. Skip nav 5. Nav 6 will be 140 pixels. Nav 7 will skip. We'll go to nav 8. That'll be 140 pixels. Nav 9. Now all of those should be the right sizes. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll go into images. Nav 5 is 103 pixels across. Nav 7 is 102 pixels across. And nav 9 is 90 pixels across. Okay, so what we'll do, go to nav 5. Nav 5 was 103 pixels across. 7. This one, 62 pixels across. And our nav 9. Oh, is 90 pixels across, which is set. Alright, and what's going on? That's strange. Let's go ahead and do that. And I'm not quite sure why I did that, but that is an example of a test site. And we'll have all the articles as being different images, and you can set them up to link to different pages. So if you had test article page, you can click the image and drag the link over to this box, which would have different pages, and you let go and it would link it to the page. I'll quickly show you how you want to set up the active page. It's really simple. You just go into where we were, underscore, and we did act, and that changes. Should be really simple. Let's see here. You go into F2 and F2. Oh, see what we did? We accidentally clicked the wrong button there. Okay. So that saved as the right name, which makes that right. So when we're on the test article page, that will be the one that's glowing. And you can do that for each page. There you go. I hope this gives you a bit more design skills for your next site you're going to make. Thank you for your time.